Slammed away.
There's Gaze. Another alley-oop pass. Oh! That's what we've been waiting for. Unbelievable timing on it. And it's the Tigers straight away. Gaze. Alley-oop. What a start.
Welcome to the Ultimate Supercoach and Fantasy Sports Show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, g'day guys, and welcome back to the Insight NBL show. I'm the Supercoach Braino. I'm not the Mattrix today. Mattrix is draining Fiji of all their beer supply. I'm joined by resident NBL expert, the Hammer himself, and you had a little bit of a trip, mate. Are you feeling rejuvenated?
I am. I'm glad to be back. I don't know if I was sick from barley belly or watching the Patrick Miller injury, but here we are. We're back at it.
That's it. We did miss a show. We were one man short of getting a show going on Monday, but Matty is back, I think, tomorrow. So things will go back to normal. You won't be seeing my face anymore, but everything will go back to normal. But as always, we're brought here today by Ryan from Astute Newstead and the Standard Squeeze. And guys, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. The boys have been doing an awesome job here. And if you are listening on audio, hit follow and leave us a review if you can so we can reach more people. As always, on the Wednesday preview show, we're going to do a quick review of last week, something a little bit different, just to kind of tap into what we would have covered on Monday. We're going to talk about breaking news. We're going to talk Supercoach previews for every single game this week. Most traded in, most traded out, trades, captaincies, and of course, we're going to answer all of your questions as well along the way. And when I say we, it's going to be Hammer. It's not going to be me. Hammer's the guy who knows his stuff here, so we're going to throw to him for all of those questions. Before we dive into last week, the league code, guys, if you haven't jumped in yet, it's 680481. 680481. Jump in, get a chance at a standard squeeze pack every single week. We're giving them away. Speaking of, last week, it's Craig, coach of Hoosiers, or Hosers, with a 461 Hammer. That is massive. That's a massive score.
Incredible. I could only dream of a score like that, but sensational effort, and we're seeing a lot of high scores coming out of the Insight group. It's awesome.
It is. It's huge. And speaking of big scores, we've got a couple of guys in the top 10 overall at the moment. So we've got David. His team is Dolt for Jack. He's still leading the league in third overall, very, very closely followed by Luke, coach of Sloth Gunners, in eighth. And there's only 21 points between them, so anyone can win it at this point, and we're only round 6, so there's so much time left to make up ground. Hopefully someone from the Unlimited group for Insight takes out the win and gets the car. Sure. Now, I thought it'd be silly not to follow on with the segments that Matty's been creating, so let's talk last week. Hammer, how'd you go last week, mate? What trades did you make? How'd you score?
Yeah, look, I had a 390 or 392, which was solid, but like everyone, probably had some of the guys who were hoping to fire not quite reach their potential. We had Paddy Miller in that last game go down early in the first, or late in the first, early in the second quarter, and was on track for another big score. You had Luke Travers fail to fire in the second game, and I wasn't a Zylan Cheatham owner, but anyone holding him would have been a little bit heartbroken. So overall, not too bad.
Yeah, I dodged that bullet somehow. I actually didn't have enough cash to get Cheatham in. So I went with Norton instead, and he didn't light it up, did he, by any means? But he had the 2 games and got me 25 off the bench, so at least I wasn't starting, didn't need a starter. So dodged that bullet, which is great. 379 for me, mate, but 1500th I think I'm sitting at the moment, like top 7% or something. So not lighting it up by any means, but holding on, just.
Slowly climbing, making our way
following
back.
the podcast. So I listened to you boys, so we're doing okay. I bought in Miller, Clintman and Norton last week for Gary Brown and the 2 Galloways. Mate, let's move into that. We're not going to cover every game. Fuck, we'll be here forever. Yeah. If we cover every game from last week and every game from this week. But what we'll do is we'll just cover who got hot.
Pull over by this hot guy and let me out.
Thought you'd enjoy that. Love a bit of Family Guy. Had to throw it in.
Away for a week, and there's like 2 new segments already. This is going all right.
Shout out to Matty G, heads up our NBA stuff. He came up with these, so full credit to him. Mate, Parker Jackson Cartwright led the way, 73, had a big week, very highly captained last week. I think 75% of people captained him.
Yeah, he went big in the second game. I found a little dive bar and had a few bintangs to watch the first one. And I was a little nervous. He wasn't great in the first game, but second game he brought it back. And I feel like there's no point of difference there. He would have been captained by the vast majority of players and coaches. And I think this was one of those ones where you got to hold him on that week or fall behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people that were in the running for it had him, right?
Yeah.
Probably someone that people didn't have was Jack McVeigh. Second highest score for the week was 69. If I had a giggity soundbite, I'd play it. Thoughts on him? Because, I mean, does he become relevant? They're on a double this week.
Look, funnily enough, I looked at him last week, and it wasn't that I thought he'd light it up. He was on a double game, and the price was able to fit in what I was trying to do. I didn't end up doing it, and I'm not overly upset about it. I don't think it's going to be something we see every week, but over 2 games, a 65, what are you getting, 30s each game? It's not massive. It is what it is, but he's a solid guy. If you've got him on your bench and you can bring him in and out on doubles, that's probably as much as you can hope for.
Yeah, fair call. A couple of guys that are starting to get hot. Sam Froling got 68. We've also got Paddy Miller, who nearly everybody and every man and their dog brought in last week for his 66, and that was cut short, wasn't it, through injury? So that's a big talking point this week.
Yeah, he went big in game 1, and he started off in game 2 still hot. He went down with a back injury, and we'll get to that in a bit later, that there's some implications coming into this week. But the other one you mentioned, Sam Froling, he's started the season slow. He's shown some potential, and he doesn't have a lot of competition at that centre spot in Illawarra, but we've spoken about it time and time again. The Illawarra schedule is us. Until you can pick him up on the back end, the last 5 or 6 rounds, they're not worth looking at that kind of price either.
Yeah, fair call. Pat Miller obviously is someone worth looking at with Cairns' schedule, 66. I mean, we'll talk about him a little bit later, so we'll leave him. But Nathan Sobey, 64, probably did what you'd expect of him. Yeah,
look, he's not going to die wondering, is he? He's going to go out and try and get his. Brisbane are on a double this week. Bangers is back. How that affects the team, the chemistry, I don't know. But I think this game suits Sobey. There's no stats are going to take away because of his inefficiency. He's going to keep getting him up. I think that they moved Chris Smith to the bench in one of the games. So that'll be interesting if that sticks around, and it's probably given Sobey a bit more free rein. And with Shannon Scott out, he's got the ball in his hands even more.
For sure. If you want a guy that's going to go and get you 64 Supercoach and 64 actual points, you've got your man there, I think. Speaking of, Justin Robinson, 62, he had a little bit of a bounce back after everybody traded him out, so that was lovely of him.
Yeah, I held Robinson, had him on my bench. It came down to a decision about trading out Robinson or Cummings, and pulled the trigger on Cummings with the injury cloud that was hanging over him. He went big. So, you win some, you lose some, but yeah, Robinson made a little bit of cash for once. It was good.
Yeah, very nice. Some guys we'll talk about soon. Wardenberg, 60. Finn Delaney also got 60. And then JLA seems to be stealing some minutes now from Huck Porty, who's another talking point. He got 58.
Yeah, look, Huck was worked for it. It wasn't easy, and it probably could have been better. But when you've got JLA looking over your shoulder, it's not a great position to be in. But he started again. But I think this is the end of the line for the Huck Porty train. JLA's playing more and more minutes. His points per minute are phenomenal, right? Like, you look at his production, he comes on, and within 30 seconds, he has 17 points.
The guy's killing it. And look, did we expect that from him? Probably, right?
We did. But I think, what I didn't expect was Huck Porty, to me, was going to make some serious cash. Look, he came in a little higher price than the other next stars, given he'd been in the league already. I think he came in around that 170 from memory. I'm going to let him go this week, and he's going out having only made about $70,000 to $80,000 cash, which I'll take it, but it's definitely not as much as I was expecting.
Yeah, you probably were looking to try and offload him at about that 300K mark, so a little bit short of that, right? But he still made cash. You can't complain too much.
That's it.
And I'm just reading my notes here from Mattrix because he's flicking me notes here from Fiji, and all it says here is Josh Bannon circle jerk. What does that mean?
Yeah, Matt likes to jerk off blokes occasionally, and he tries to get one of us involved to make it a circle. This time, and I have resisted every other circle jerk up until now, but this one's legit. I think I'm going to join in on this one. Josh Bannon, big minutes, solid scores, a double this week. Every team on the single the week after. There's something to get happy about. This is a guy who's going to make some cash, and he's got a negative break even at, from memory, negative 18. So he's going up again.
There's some big coin to be made. And you don't have to ask me twice to be a part of a circle jerk, so I'm in. And Travers rounds out top scorers, I guess, for this week, 50 on the dot with a bit of a quiet game too, right?
Yeah, I think he had about 45 in the first one. And I started Travers, and I thought, here we go. This is good. And the plan was, this is about the last week we're going to ride out the Melbourne United guys. So sent me off nicely, but second game he had an injury scare early in the first quarter, which had him sit for a good 10 minutes up until half time. But even before he got hurt, it just wasn't clicking for him. He had multiple turnovers. It just was not looking good. And when he came back, it still was ordinary. So he finished with 5-7 points, something like that, and pretty not so memorable finish to my stint of holding him.
Should be okay for this week, though. Is that right?
Should be, but it's possibly a part of the schedule where a lot of guys are going to be looking to offload those Melbourne United guys. So maybe too little too late, hey?
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. At least we bail out and he didn't lose too much cash for that 50, so he should be okay. Let's move on to the cold guys. All right. Talk to me about Saar. He got 6. Everyone probably has him. They're on the double this week. Do you hold? Do you sell? What's the plan?
You know what? I've got Saar on my bench, and they're on the double. Every team's on a single next week. He's a potential hold. And what I'm looking at now is these comments that are starting to pop up. I think we've just found ourselves a little Pinder surprise. Now, this is news to me. Pinder out this week? What's going on there?
I mean, we saw these comments popping up before the show started, so we were scrambling at the last minute before we went live here trying to work out where this news has come from. If anyone can let us know where it has come from or send us in the right direction, please do in the comments, because we're yet to find anything unless you have.
If this news is true, there is a beautiful little toy inside your Pinder surprise called Alex Saar. And that power forward position is going to open right up for him if Pinder's out, and could be a nice little reward for holding on to him.
Yeah, one of the good toys, though, from the 90s in your Pinder surprise. Not one of those fucking shit toys that you get these days. You know those ones where they're already made for you?
Yeah,
come on, man.
Book.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I want. Huck Porty, mate. Huck Porty got 29 in a double. So, I mean, you mentioned it's probably time to trade him out based on JLA and based on the minute split and all that kind of stuff. So we probably don't need to touch on that. But what we can touch on, just a bit of validation for you, because I know you've been kind of riding the Adelaide suck train for a while. And Flowers with a 2 is still 20% owned in Supercoach.
Yeah, so those 20% of people are ultimately entitled to their wrong opinion, as always. But, man, how wrong can you get? Like, this is what I talked to Rob about the other week. You know, you're in love with the girl. You love the idea of it. He's a next star. He should be doing this stuff. But, man, he's hurting you. You deserve better. Walk away.
I'm glad I got to experience this firsthand, a relationship metaphor from Hammer himself. I was hoping that one was going to pop up. So it's good. Now I just need to tell someone it's not what you spend, it's what you save, and just have a beer, and I'm good. Like, no one will even know the difference, right?
If I close my eyes, it feels like Matty's here. Just picture your Bullets jersey, right?
That's it. Love it. Mate, a couple of other guys. Your mate Valentine only got 17. Sydney are on the double again this week. I mean, are people still going to get tempted by him, or is his role just not there anymore?
Look, after spending the last couple of weeks in Southeast Asia, I think maybe a ladyboy metaphor is probably apt. Now, this is the kind of guy that he looks good from far, but far from good. You know, like, he's got the bells and whistles. He looks $1 million, but when you just peel back a few layers, it's not what you want, and you shouldn't be bringing this guy in.
I thought you were going to start talking about ping pong balls there for a second. I'm glad that we didn't go in that direction. That's good.
Thailand was last year's trip.
Mate, the last guy, I guess, on the list that a few people own now is Ben Ayre. Matty will be very upset, I guess, that he won't be able to play the soundbite anymore when everybody trades him out. Do you get off? They're on the double. Is he going to hurt you? Or you just leave him there? You've got bigger problems.
It really comes down to the makeup of your squad. If he's hanging on your bench, next week's probably a really good week to get rid of some of those guys that are still hanging around your squad. Every team's on a single. Like, I'm still holding on to, DNP every single week, Ben Henschel. Yep. You don't have to be chasing doubles because no one's on the double next week. You can start to clean out your closet and start to maybe there's an Eminem soundbite coming in for that one. But
we'll organise it.
But yeah, next week's probably the one you can look to get rid of those guys. This week, you're probably going to have a bit more work to do with getting guys on doubles.
Yeah, and we've got tons of teams on doubles this week, which is beautiful. So plenty of options for us this week. Anybody else cold for you, mate? Anybody else that you're not really keen on?
Look, apart from the obvious ones with the injuries, your Zylan Cheatham out 6 to 8 weeks, get cold there. Was starting to look pretty good before that. Will McDowell-White hasn't been lighting the world up, and that's with New Zealand starting to come into a good schedule. I'll tell you who I am actually really cold on is Taj McCall. We'll touch on that a little bit later on when we're talking Cairns, but he's due back this week, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah, okay. I actually, one of the only, I travel to Cairns for work every now and again, and I went to a Taipans game, and Taj McCall just reminded me of Russell Westbrook light.
Yeah.
Just everything about him, just drive to the rim way too much, struggles to shoot the perimeter, turns the ball over a lot.
Yeah.
It's Russell Westbrook light.
He's pretty much the guy, when you used to play juniors and someone's parent coached the team, he's the parent's son. He's the guy they call every play for, can't do any wrong, never gets subbed out, even gets to coach the team in the preseason. Like, this guy must be related to Adam Ford because he thinks he's a lot better than he is.
Love it. On that note, let's talk breaking news. There's a fair bit of it.
Absolutely.
It's time for some news from around the league.
Taran Armstrong. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And round 6, he finally appears. What are we doing with him?
The prodigal son has returned. Look, and it couldn't come at a better time if you are thinking of bringing him in because there's still an injury cloud over my man, Patrick Miller. Now, I've seen a few comments pop up with, what do we do with Miller? I'm holding him. I'm banking on him being part of my squad. They don't play until the Friday night, I don't think. So there's a little bit of time, a little bit of water to go under the bridge to see what's going on. But, if he doesn't play, big minutes, big gaps to fill for Taran Armstrong. And 69K.
Oh, cheap as chips. It's a perfect spot for him if he gets a run. And even if Miller's injured, he gets even more burn, doesn't he? So fingers crossed. But a lot of us own Miller. So double-edged sword. I'm just reading a quote here from Adam Ford on Pat Miller. Pat wants to train and play now, and we're trying to hold him back. He's the ultimate competitor and warrior, and that's what we brought him in for. It was a back complaint mainly. It's now managing the swelling and bruising and seeing how he pulls up. So it looks like they're trying to convince him not to play, but he's pushing as hard as he can to get on the court.
Yeah, I've kind of lost faith in Fordy's little pearls little breadcrumbs he throws out because he made me think that Armstrong was coming back for like the first 2 rounds and I held him. So, I burned once. Shame on me. You're not going to get me again.
Very cool. Mate, talk to us about Cheatham. How long's he out for? It's a fair amount of time. He's a trade out, isn't he?
Yeah, it didn't look good. So the latest we're hearing is 6 to 8 weeks. Now, this is possibly a blessing in disguise for those like me who didn't pay up for him last week. Really bad news for our community team who did. Now, if we look on the bench with New Zealand, that power forward spot is being shared off the bench between Lamb and Finn Delaney. Now, both are playing significant minutes as it is, and it's only going to improve. They're going to start to absorb some of those minutes left behind by Cheatham. So whichever way they go, both are going to see an increase.
Who's more likely to start?
I think last week they went to Lamb starting. I could be wrong, but he may have even started at the 3 spot, or they might have put Cheatham at the 5, but I think he started. So I think the bigger upside comes from Delaney. He played well. I think he had 32 Supercoach points last game. So Delaney has a cheaper price tag also. So that's probably where I'll be looking at.
Yeah, the minutes seemed there on the weekend. I think he ended up playing, I think he scored 60 or very close to it last week across 2 games, which is handy. So if he gets a start, I mean, here's a question for you: Wardenberg or Delaney? Because that's who I'm probably tossing up between this week for my final trade.
So look, there's about what's the price difference? About 60K between them, something like that?
Yeah, 271 plays 217 or something. So pretty spot on, yeah.
Yeah. So look, depending on your cash situation, you could probably lean towards Delaney. Both have similar schedules over the next probably 3 to 4 weeks. Cairns have the extended run of doubles, but Delaney also gives you maybe an edge when it comes to getting rid of all the Cairns players. I'm assuming we're all going to be holding a lot of them. So, look, Wardenberg has that centre spot locked up in Cairns, and he is dual position eligible, whereas Delaney, I think he's just a forward. Look, pros and cons, both are going to be solid.
If you want the flexibility, the dual position's handy. So that maybe tips it if you've got the cash, I guess. Mate, Aaron Baines returns from suspension. What are your thoughts here? Does this affect anything going on in the Bullets land?
It's definitely going to affect a few things, and whether it takes 1 game, 2 game to integrate him back into the squad, especially after they've been winning, time will tell. But he's eventually going to be starting. He's their starting centre. It's going to affect your Tyrell Harrisons, probably Rocco Zakarski, and we'll go back to sort of that minute split that we saw in the first couple of games before he got injured. The one we're probably concerned about is Bannon. However, Bannon was their starting power forward in the preseason, and Schuler, the coach, has shown great faith in him. So I don't think he's going to be overly affected by the return.
And negative $1 million break even anyway. So, at worst case, get him on a double, make some coin, reassess.
For sure.
Now, Adelaide have copped some hate, but they've got a dub. Does that change things, or are we just going to go back to the same old Adelaide this week?
No, I'm calling it fool's gold. Look, they're bound to get a win every now and then. A lot of teams struggle to play against bad teams. You find yourself down in the mud, in the weeds, playing to their level. It's not sustainable. They've been talking about bringing in the 3rd import since they left Franklin go during the preseason. It's still, what are we coming to round 6? They've had 10 games now, something like that. It's almost too far gone. Are you even going to bother now? Look, fool's gold for me. They're still going to be bottom 4.
Where's a flying toilet in the comments? I see him in here somewhere because he loves calling out your fool's gold, doesn't he?
He does. He's got a radar for it.
Let's see if he hops in. Actually, no, I can see he's in. He's in here. Let us know what you think. Do you agree? Or are you going to go against it? Mate, last bit of news here is pretty big news. Trevor Gleeson open to coaching offers. What are your thoughts on that? Where does he end up?
All is not well in Perth right now, is it? We've got a situation where Bryce Cotton's wife has obviously blurted out a little bit of pillow talk on her Twitter and pretty much expressed her not so hidden feelings that John really can't coach. And I got to agree with her. The squad he's got should be a lot better than what they're showing. So Gleeson, obviously one of Perth's favourite sons, won 5 championships there. Back in the country, fresh off an NBA stint, and he's open to offers in the right situation. So reading between the lines, to me, that says Perth and not Illawarra, not Adelaide.
Yep, fair enough. Be good to see him back. He'd do wonders for pretty much any team he goes to. So, mate, that does it for breaking news. Very quick shout out to Ryan from Astute Newstead. Guys, if you're listening and you're thinking about maybe going into buying your own home or you want to get into the market in some way, or maybe you even want to just look into getting your interest rate looked at, maybe your interest rate feels a little bit higher, you can talk to Ryan from Astute Newstead. You can contact him on Instagram, Ryan Astute Newstead, one word, or you can give him an email, ryanh@eganwealth.com. We've worked with Ryan personally. I know I have anyway, personally. He's looked after me and my home, and he's got a number of guys into theirs. And he'll look after you. It doesn't cost you a thing. You can just have a chat with him about your situation, and he will look after you if you mention us. He'll give you a free consult. So go and hit him up. Mate, let's move into this week's games.
Let's preview the games for the week ahead. It's time for Game Talk.
Like we mentioned, 6 teams on the double. So we've got Cairns, Sydney, New Zealand, Perth, Southeast Melbourne and Brisbane. Now, if you're looking at a 2-week, everyone's on a single next week. So it's kind of irrelevant what happens next week, right? So, I mean, for me personally, I'm looking at the next 3 rounds. I'm looking at Cairns, New Zealand and Perth who are on the double, single, double.
Yeah, it's round 7's a free hit. And so what that means is we're not chasing doubles. We've got some time to massage our bench into some more playable guys. But we're really starting to identify those teams that are on a double round 6 and round 8. Sort of the bookends to this free hit. So the guys we're really looking at are your Cairns and New Zealand and your Perth. So if you're bringing in guys, they're probably a 3-week rental, potentially, unless they're from Cairns. You can hold them a bit longer. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack with the schedule. It's a good little pivot point in the season. Yeah,
there's a few teams that are nice. Like, I mean, you guys have talked about Cairns a million times and what their run looks like. New Zealand, very similar. But, mate, we'll dive into the first game Thursday, 7:30. We've got Brisbane versus Southeast Melbourne to kick off the week. Phoenix have won 4 out of their last 5 against the Bullets. Does this continue? How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, look, Phoenix are playing well. They've got the firepower, but also Brisbane had a pretty solid last weekend as well. They got Baines back. And his size is going to be considerable against a smaller centre like Big Sauce. So I know Big Sauce has the captain label against him in most squads. Something to consider because he's not overly a stretch kind of guy. He's not going to step out and hit a lot of threes on him. So how that plays out will be interesting. There's a lot of big names. A lot of guys have held Mitch Creek over. He'll be in a lot of squads. Brisbane, you've got your Sobies, your Bannons. Some guys are still hanging on to that pipe dream called Sammy Mack. Yourself, you've got Norton, who you brought in on a rental. So there's a bit to look at. Yeah,
I love the Big Sauce versus Bangers matchup this week. Just thinking about what kind of sauce I'm going to put on my sausage roll. I mean, those two are the kind of focal point, really, aren't they, along with Sobey in this matchup and Creek?
Sauce he's expensive. He's tipped over the 400K mark now, and I'd been planning to bring him in. Had put some cash aside, been budgeting nicely for this moment. But he even surprised me that he kicked up that little bit extra. So there's going to be a few squads that have potentially come up a bit short trying to bring him in. So a few other captain options floating around. I know Cotton's getting mentioned. That's coming up in the comments. So we'll touch on that at the end. But yeah, Sauce is definitely on a lot of people's radars.
Yeah, we'll touch on Cotton. That's a big talking point this week, I think. But a couple of fun facts on this one. Southeast Melbourne, they're actually first in Supercoach points for and against. So they've conceded the least and scored the most in the last 2 weeks since Big Sauce has returned. So I don't know what that tells you, but you can see what kind of role he plays for this team, right?
And it's a good thing to look at. A lot of that comes down to your pace of play. So you look at traditionally, especially in their first 2 years, the Jack Jumpers was defend the iron, the grit and the grind, slow teams down, limit the possessions, which limits the Supercoach points. And it was clearly obvious. Their pace of play has improved this year, but you look at those teams that get up and down and run and gun, and, Southeast Melbourne's one of them, you're going to have a lot of points scored.
For sure. Let's move on. New Zealand versus Cairns, 5:30 Friday for the first one of 2 there. Both teams relatively red hot. Nice schedule moving forward. What are your thoughts here? Who are we looking at?
Yeah, big implications here. We're looking at the Patrick Miller injury. Do we get news of that? Is it a last-minute shuffle? Do we trade out? What can we do there? What time's lockout? Armstrong coming in. Is he coming in solo or is he coming in with Miller there? Cheat them out. We talked about Finn Delaney. We talked about Lamb. Are they filling that position? McDowell White's been a little bit cold, but we've got Parker Jackson Cartwright, who's been red hot since he entered the league. He's going to be held in a lot of teams after being captained last week. So this is a game where you're going to see your scores getting a run up with guys holding a lot of these guys in their squads.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Parker Jackson Cartwright popped up a 57 against Cairns last time he played him, so that's
Can someone
appealing.
remind me what Toilets Man, Matt Kenyon, had this round?
I'm going to have to find
I
out.
had a look through the
Didn't
box
prepare.
score and there weren't any numbers jumping out of me.
Is that a little sly dig? Because I think he was having a sly dig at you a little while ago. If I can try and find it here somewhere. Clintman. He was talking about Clintman's fool's gold last week. So I guess he's got one up on you there, but it's a long season, isn't it?
But Clintman's fool's goal that he's calling still surpasses the score that he was crowing about that Kenyon got. So, yeah, Clintman's legit. I'm holding him.
Love it. Love it. I was going to say bring in Armstrong this week, or do we wait until he's on the bubble? I mean, can we wait, realistically?
Look, I think you can. You know, he's not going to go up in price until he's played 3 games. So that next week when you got the free hit, definitely worth having a look at. I'm potentially going to bring him in for, you know, a Ben Henschel type, just try and clear out some of the dead wood on my bench. But yeah, I don't think there's any rush this week. He's a cash cow. He's probably going to play a bit and give you some points, but I'm going to keep him on the bench now. You know, as long as Miller's healthy, as long as I've got Parker Jackson Cartwright, I've got enough good guard coverage to wait it out.
Yeah. I guess the last one for me on this one, like how many Cairns players is too many? We've got Wardenberg, we've got Clintman, we've got Miller, we've got now Armstrong.
Right
where
now,
do you call it?
I don't think he can have too many. But you need to have an exit strategy for when those doubles run out. And whether that exit strategy includes a boost or not, you need to plan ahead so you're not left, you know, holding the baby when all of a sudden that beautiful schedule comes to a screeching halt. But, you know, right now you're playing with the house's money. They've got another, 5-6 rounds on doubles. It's a good time to be in the far north.
Yeah, absolutely. A few questions, I guess, around Miller. Julian's asking, do we hold Miller or not? Probably covered that a little bit, I guess, in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah.
We're waiting until the last minute, I guess, to see whether he's named.
Yeah, look, it's a wait and see, but I think you need to have something up your sleeve in case that news comes through late and have those contingencies ready to pivot, you know, in a very short time frame.
For sure. And I just want to throw this out there. Flying Camel, is it worth a boost to trade out Mattrix for Brain? I'm going to say no. I've got enough going on at the moment. I can't run 3 shows. Matty does a good job, so we'll keep the boost for future weeks, I think, because we might need it. Who knows?
You'd need some cash considerations to make that deal happen.
A Flying Toilet has a toilet truth bomb coming our way, so we'll keep an eye out for that in the comments later. A few questions around where Matty is. He's drinking beer in Fiji at the moment, where we'd all rather be. So I'll cover his ass this week, but he's back tomorrow, so you'll see him on Monday's show. We got a Monday game this week?
We do.
Okay. So whether you guys go live Monday or however you play it this week, that'll be interesting. I'm sure Matty's got a plan anyway.
Yeah,
we'll keep moving on, mate. So Illawarra and Sydney, the second game on Friday. Sydney have knocked them off the last 5. We probably should see something similar continue, shouldn't we?
Yeah, look, both are probably not overly relevant given the schedule this week. Illawarra, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Their schedule's pass. In saying that, I hold 2 of them. I've got Aldrich, and he's been good. He's starting to rise. He's finding his feet. And I've had Robinson, who, you know, after a couple of pretty ordinary rounds, he's starting to get a bit more comfortable. Illawarra were at least competitive this week. But, you know, that team's a train wreck. So, you know, approach with caution.
Yeah, you're probably not buying any Illawarra players this week, are you, on the single?
No. And I don't think you're going to for a while. Like, I'll be trying to get out probably Robinson next week when we've got that single, all teams on the single. And then I'll be sitting back hoping they all go down in value so I can bring some of those guys in come the last 5-6 rounds of the season when they become relevant.
Yep. Captaincy options. I don't know. Paul Vardas is in the chat. Jalen Adams, a massive C option this week. What are your thoughts on that?
He is. Yeah. Look, I think you got a few options this week. Big Source is one of the obvious ones. Jalen Adams, he's been balling out. I don't think he scored under a 30 this year. He's been very solid. Cotton, he's dropped probably 100K, if not close to that, since round 1. Hurst's a bit of a weird situation, but he's an option. And then obviously Parker Jackson Cartwright on the double again. So, look, this is probably a week where there's not that one obvious captain choice. Like last week, it was, more than likely going to be Parker Jackson Cartwright for the vast majority of teams. This one might be a few points of difference. You might jag it, you might not. It's going to require a bit of thought. And given the single next week, you can roll the dice on a rental. There's no forward planning here.
The captaincy's a bit spread. I had a look before we hopped on. Cotton's leading the way, 20% captained at the moment. Parker Jackson Cartwright 16 and Creek 9. So those are the top 3 captains options from the community at the moment. So
yeah, okay.
A couple of smoky little pods there to play with. I think Jalen Adams could be one. We've got Mr. Cobb 35. Adams or Cotton? Who are you picking out of those two?
Look, probably Cotton, just based on the fact that he is a double round 8. So you can hold him for 3 weeks. Jalen Adams is a double, single. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I feel like Jalen Adams is going to be a bit more consistent. Cotton has been, up and down this year, and the drama that's surrounding Perth has been running for the hills.
One very quick question before we move on to the next one. I think we've already covered it. Pinder or Big Sauce. Word is that Pinder could be out. So do your research on that. Try and find something concrete. We're going off comments in the live chat right now to work this out. So off the back of that, you'd say Big Sauce, you just spend up, don't you?
Yeah, look, for sure. I think, Pinder's someone you could have held for a 3-week rental, like we said with Cotton. But, yeah, he's been playing well. This whole injury cloud's throwing me, though. So, for me, it's Williams there. For
sure. Let's move on, mate. The 5:30 Saturday game, Tassie versus Brisbane. We spoke a little bit about conceding the least points for South East Melbourne. The Jack Jumpers have conceded the second least, so defense is pretty solid. They scored the 4th least points, though, Supercoach wise. So are we still looking at guys like Doyle, Crawford this week?
Yeah. Look, if you've held Doyle, he had a bit of a down week. But he's still, that role's defined. He's still going to be the man in Tassie. Him and Crawford, they're both going to be playing. But Brisbane's rolling. So, look, they're not guys to be bringing in. If you've got them, hold them. If not, I'll be looking elsewhere for some value.
Yeah, fair call. Brizzy got them by 3 last time they played. So it could be another tight one we're looking at.
For sure.
Now, McVeigh. We mentioned him a tiny little bit at the start. Second highest score last week. Red hot. His dual position. Is he worth a go? 284K at the moment.
Look at 284K. You're looking at, and if you don't hold him already, think about who else you can get in that 4 position for that price or cheaper. We're looking at Finn Delaney with a pretty good schedule coming up and more opportunity. We're looking at Wardenberg with that exceptional schedule, and we know the opportunity's there. I don't think McVeigh is a guy you're going to bring in. There's just better value, better schedule, better opportunity available, and that's where you're going to go with it.
Yeah, and we were talking about those 3 teams on the double, single, double. It's got to be Cairns, New Zealand, Perth. If you're looking at the schedule. Let me ask you this. Are there any players at the moment that you would be happy to play as a starter, even though they're on a single?
Ooh, it's a tough one. And it would be dependent on how many other teams are on doubles. But I think it's a limited few. Maybe a Parker Jackson Cartwright, maybe a Miller, Big Sauce. Probably the way I look at it is a starter really should be getting you about 30 Supercoach points, right? So if you've got those guys like Parker Jackson Cartwright who have the ability to go for 60, you could probably cover a normal guy on a double. So that's probably the rule of thumb I'd be playing with.
Yeah, I think I played around a couple of times early in the season so far where I played a guy on a double because he was on a double, and then I think I've had Mitch Creek twice on the bench, and there was one of them he got 40 in 1 week. So it's a risk that you take, isn't it? Yeah,
makes as much sense as girl math.
It does. We won't go into gender equality.
Mattrix is, it's not what you spend. It's what is it?
It's not what you spend. It's what you save. I mean, the amount of times I've heard that, because we've done nearly 100 NRL podcasts and NBA podcasts together, and I reckon the count's at about 100 in the times that we've said it.
That quote is directly out of the girl math handbook. I'm going to have to check that one.
We'll keep that one for next week when he's back, mate, and you guys can discuss that. Now let's talk Perth, because big talking point we just said, double, single, double coming up, so favourable schedule versus Adelaide, 8 p.m. Saturday. It's Adelaide. Could they play Perth back into form? Because realistically, if they don't, John Rillie surely is gone.
Well, you'd think a lot of these coaches would have been gone by now. They're just not pulling the trigger. Look, I don't like thinking that teams are going to come in against these teams like Adelaide and Illawarra and destroy them, because as we've seen this season, last season, through the sands of time, they end up playing to these levels and just shit the bed. I'd be more worried that Perth are going to lose. Adelaide have nothing to lose. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at this game. They had a win. They're feeling good about themselves. Perth is in a world of hurt. Like, don't make any mistake about that. The on-court product looks chaotic. The off-court product looks even worse. This is a team I wouldn't touch with a very long stick right now.
I thought you were going in a different direction with that quote.
Yeah.
I would have accepted it. Would have been good. Bryce Cotton, most talked about. We've covered him a little bit, so we don't need to dive too deep. But he's at 374K. He's got a 68 break even this week. He averages 34 against Adelaide and 39 against Melbourne. So nice matchups for him.
Yeah, look, he's going down again. I don't think he's going to break out really past that break even. Think about what he's doing this year. He pretty much is playing 40 minutes a game. This is the extent of Riley's coaching. Put Cotton out there and he'll win us the game. It's the opportunities there, and he's just not producing. The defenses are collapsing on him. There just really isn't the structure in place to get him open like he did in the past. And look, as much as many of us used to knock Trev Gleeson and his, under 12 flex offense, come off a down screen, set a cross screen, come across, repeat 412 times, it worked. And right now, it's just whatever they're running. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not. So
it seemed to be a system that was built around Bryce Cotton, didn't it? And now we've gone with this completely different system that's built for team basketball.
And it's not just the system. It's also the personnel. Like, you think back to the times when they were winning championships, you had pass-first point guards who were just happy to do the one-percenters, play some defense. We're talking Mitch Norton, Damian Martin, those kind of guys. Now you bring in the two Webster brothers, who've both never seen a shot they don't like and probably have leather poisoning from holding the ball for so long. And then you're trying to put the ball also in Cotton's hands, saying, go get your own. It's a completely different dynamic.
Yeah. I nearly said his name. The guy that grows knees is Sarah trade out.
This is one, and I love your profile picture, Nee. This is a guy that I was going to trade out. Looks like he's peaked. The opportunity isn't there. However, seeing the comments roll through, and it's unconfirmed at the moment, but if Pinder is out, this is the Pinder surprise we're talking about. This is, who else are you going to play at the power forward spot? Jesse Wagstaff in his 712th game? Probably not. So if Pinder's out, I'm going to hold Sarr another week and probably massage him out of my team next week. Mind you, I've still got to get rid of some other deadwood like Kyron Galloway, Ben Henschel. So, yeah.
It could be, look, you're holding a worse play. It could be much worse, couldn't it? Holding Sarr on a double. So, you can deal with that. I'm in a very similar situation. I've got Sarr out at the moment, but depending on whether Miller's in or out will determine whether I have to flip Wardenberg back to Sarr for the week and look at
best laid plans in turmoil again.
Yeah, that is correct. Southeast Melbourne and Cairns, mate, 2 p.m. on Sunday. What are your thoughts on this one? We mentioned both teams already and talked trades a little bit, but there are a few questions floating around here that are Cairns and Phoenix related.
Yeah.
Let me try and find them. So David Bryson at the start of the show, coach of Too Many Cooks, is in the chat a lot. Thanks for joining us, mate. Start versus sit, Bannon versus Clintman.
Look, both are in the same position where they've got key pieces coming back into their respective squads. So Bannon hasn't played in the regular season alongside Baines yet, and Clintman has got Taj McCall coming back into the squad apparently this weekend. Another guy who potentially has a very bad case of leather poisoning. I've never seen him give the ball up. So, look, for me, it's probably a bit of a toss-up. I'd be going with Bannon because the starting opportunity is there. Although I wouldn't be upset with Clintman. He was in my squad last week, had a down game and a great game. So, yeah, look, you can flip a coin on that one.
Yeah, I guess it's up in the air as well because Bangers is back. We don't know how that affects Bannon either. So, yeah, a bit of a tricky one. What are your thoughts here, Mr. Cobb? Source score prediction. What do you reckon he gets this week? Would you captain him?
I've been looking very closely at captaining him. Look, if he got a 70 over the weekend, I'd be reasonably happy.
Okay.
It's 35 a game. It's not unreasonable, and he's showing that he's capable of it. So, look, that's a pretty solid captain score.
Only put up 46 in a single last week. He averages 40 for the season since he's been back. Yeah, it's a nice option. I'm sitting with my captain on Big Source this week at the moment.
He's a on that team, and you look at the way they go about it. Gary Brown, I had him in my squad the other week, and he probably could have had maybe half a dozen more assists if Big Source, could hit a little gimme from 4 foot out. But what it does show is they're looking for him. He's a focal point, and they're going to keep going to the well until it dries up. He's definitely got the opportunity down in Southeast.
Yeah, they're just feeding him, aren't they? Until it doesn't work anymore, basically.
Yeah.
Mr. Nee wants to know, should he trade Wardenberg or should he trade in Wardenberg or Finn Delaney? This was a question I asked.
Yeah,
I'm in the same situation.
We did discuss this. I think, for me, Finn is probably the bigger upside. He's cheaper. The opportunity now is expanding for him. Whereas Wardenberg, what you see is what you get. But now we've got the addition of McCall. How that affects him, who knows? Is it that McCall just draws such a crowd because he dribbles the air out of the ball until 22 seconds gone on the shot clock and then Wardenberg gets a little dump off? Or does McCall shoot the ball after 23 seconds of holding it and Wardenberg's left to go after the rebound? I really am interested in seeing how that dynamic plays out. So for me, it's Finn.
Yeah, nice. Like it. And you save 60K. You can do something with that. And if that 60K gets you something else as a bit of a nicer upgrade as an option, then that's probably your play, isn't it?
And as we always say, sometimes it's not what you spend, it's what you save, right?
Beauty. I love how the setup was beautiful. Julian is asking, and I don't want to butcher his name, what are your thoughts on this bloke from New Zealand?
Mango Mathiang. Yeah, this is a guy who Modi Mayor, the coach of New Zealand, brought in pre-season and caused an absolute ruckus on social media when they said this is an upgrade on Derek Pardon. So I think clearly 6 rounds in, we can all confidently say it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some expanded opportunity because Zion Cheatham did see a bit of time at the 5, but I'm more inclined to think they're going to play some small ball and look, he may play minutes, but I don't think they're going to be increased minutes.
Yep, fair enough. That answers that one. Mr. Cobb has mentioned Perth are the kind of team you want to jump on a week before they explode. And realistically, it could happen, right? It could happen at any point. And realistically, it's going to be when everybody jumps off them. It's just the way Supercoach works.
Yeah, but, it's like when you go out with your mates. Someone has to jump on the grenade, and it's better you than me. So you can have Perth, mate. I'm not touching them.
Yeah, I won't be going there either. And last quick question before we tackle the last couple of games. Bryce, Sam Froling, we spoke about him a little bit earlier. Has he had another gear or was it just luck?
Look, Sam Froling's going to put those games together occasionally. I don't think what he does or the way he goes about things changes too often. Sometimes he just puts it together. And he's another one of those players that teases you. He should be producing so much more than he is. And occasionally lives up to that hype. But then he's another one you'll bring in this week, and next week you will leave disappointed. So probably the best case scenario for you guys is to hope that he's terrible for the next 8 rounds and bring him in for the last couple of rounds when they're on doubles at a much better price.
Yeah, that's it. It's just their schedule. It stinks. So you can revisit this conversation in maybe 3-4 weeks' time.
It's too expensive to bring him in on singles.
For sure. Mate, last couple of games, we've got Sydney and New Zealand, 4 p.m. Sunday. We've covered both teams. Anything to mention here in this matchup?
Not a whole lot. Look, Melbourne, Perth, probably going to be starting to look at JLA and see how that transition's going with him taking over Huck Porty and whether he becomes more and more relevant later in the season. There's a few doubles left for Melbourne where a possible 1 or 2 game rental might be worthwhile. Perth, we've spoken about it at length. And New Zealand, Cheatham out, Parker Jackson Cartwright on double, potential captain option, Jalen Adams a potential captain option. So they're matching up. Potentially, who's going to match up on Jalen Adams? Is it going to be Will McDowell-White? They'll throw Liafa at him at times, maybe Parker Jackson Cartwright. It's a tough night at the office. So maybe that plays into your captain trades.
Yeah, it sounds like they'll get their own, I think, like most weeks. I mean, does the 5 singles in a row just make Melbourne United kind of irrelevant now, Supercoach-wise, for the next month?
Yeah. Look, I don't think there is any player on that team that you can play on a single. Potentially, the only thing you can do if you're holding a couple of them is hold one this week. Next week doesn't matter because everyone's on a single. But by the time you've got through that period, you really have to be done with them. You've still got Delhi to come back. I don't know what the timeline is on that right now. But they're clicking, they're rolling, and they're playing guys pretty even court time.
I think they'll be pretty careful, right, with Delhi, with the concussion history. They'll take their time with him.
They're 8-1. There's no reason to rush anything. Goulding's playing well, not Supercoach-wise, but he's having some good games. You had Clark sit out one of the games over the weekend, so it's just a lot of mouths to feed there.
Yeah, and that's the downside of getting involved in a good team from a Supercoach perspective is that everybody gets theirs.
It's almost better to have a great player on a terrible team because you know he's going to get his whether they win or not. And that's why you tend to have guys that show up on these teams like, I mean, schedule aside, like a Justin Robinson on Illawarra can go big and they have no choice to play him normally, or like some of the weaker rosters that you're looking at. That's it. Opportunity meets schedule. That's where you're going to find your little nuggets of gold.
Love it. We've covered all 8 games this week, with the Monday game being Melbourne-Perth. So that's interesting. That pushes everything back a little bit of a week, a day. Might impact some recovery, wouldn't it?
We got a tight turnaround there.
Yeah, I haven't actually looked towards the week after.
But with every team on a single.
Yeah, I would say obviously Perth and Melbourne are just going to play at the back end of the week next week. Everyone's on a single, so they'll probably just stagger it so that everyone gets adequate rest.
I've just had a little news flash come in here from the toilet saying it's time for his toilet truth bomb.
Ooh, drop it. Let us know. I'm happy to sit here and wait for this toilet truth bomb. Hopefully he types quick.
For sure.
Well, you know what? While he's typing his toilet truth bomb, we'll throw out to the Standard Squeeze very quickly, because the Standard Squeeze sponsor the podcast from day one. For anybody who hasn't heard of them yet, they do 4-in-1s, which are these little thermos things. It keeps your beer cold. It keeps 12 of Maddie's beers cold during each podcast episode. And, if you have a coffee in the morning, it'll keep that nice and hot as well. So you can go and check them out on thestandardsqueeze.com and use the code INSIGHT15 to get 15% off. Where's this truth bomb? I'm waiting for it. You know what? Let's just move on to most traded in and out, and we'll make it happen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to report a trade.
So we've got the top 6 most traded out players at the moment, mate. Call me out if you don't agree. We've got Huck Porty at 18%. That makes sense.
Makes sense. Sure.
Travers at 8% based on schedule, I'd say, to free up some cash. Jalen Galloway.
Sorry, Brian. Not just schedule. Right. Travers he's been underwhelming, right? Like, this is a guy that everyone was talking about preseason. We spruiked him on our preseason pod that he's going to be must own. He's got this massive upside. He's come to Melbourne, expanded Xavier Cook's role, and he's gone all of about 15K. This is one you just think, it was what it was, but I'm happy to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in and out of teams, though. I remember listening to your preseason podcast, and he wasn't always in your teams throughout the preseason, was he?
Look, he wasn't, but he's also like, if we're going back to biblical times, he's like Samson, right? He's cut his locks and he's lost his power. That's what I'm putting it down to.
Okay. I've just been thrown by this toilet truth bomb, mate. I'll let you read it out because it's sitting there for you. And you weren't exactly keen on this bloke.
Will McDowell White, captain this week. Wow. Look, I don't think you got the balls to captain him for starters, but you're entitled to your wrong opinion, as always. Yeah, let's just move on from that. That's a terrible, terrible call. What's worse than your Matt Kenyon call? You can quote that.
Oh, I like it. 55-28. I'll try and find the clip for it later. Mate, we've got Zylan Cheatham. He's a trade out at 7%. Saar, we spoke about at 7%. You can go either way on that based on the Miller news, I guess. The Pinder news. And Henshaw, 4%, is a guy you've been trying to get out for a while now.
Look, all of those make sense, whether they're schedule related, whether they're guys who've just found themselves out of the rotation. Some of them are potentially luxury trades for some squads, but yeah, makes sense to me.
Let's talk ins then. Bannon 20%. The Bannon circle jerk is in full effect with 20% of super coaches. What's that? 4,000 people. 4,500 people are in on the circle jerk.
Quick man.
Enjoying it. Wardenberg 11%. Big Sauce 10%. Guy we haven't talked about, Qual from Cairns. What are your thoughts on him? Because it could be an option.
He played the full 40 minutes last week. I don't see that continuing this week with Taj McCall set to rejoin the team in New Zealand. Whether he plays that game or he plays the next game, I think Qual's going to see – he still play, but it's not going to be 40 minutes and it's not going to have the ball in his hand as much. We've talked before about how ball dominant Taj McCall is, and Bull Qual is probably the one who's going to suffer because of it.
Yeah, look, he's not going to play 40 minutes, is he? It's like Jimmy Butler if NBA followers playing, 48, 50 minutes against the Lakers in that final series in the bubble.
For 40 minutes, he didn't produce, out of this world kind of stat line. And look, Flying Toilets just popped in the comments again. Qual is certified fool's gold. You can probably mark this 57-18. This is the first time I'm ever going to agree with the bloke. He's right. Yeah, steer clear.
I like it. So anybody 5% that are on him, jump off. 4% on Pinder, 4% on Delaney kind of rounds it out. Both decent options, but that Pinder stat could change.
Yeah, another comment popping in from Corey Blackledge. Thoughts on Illy, Travers and Huckporty out for Adams, Bannon and Pinder in. Look, the only caveat I'm going to put on that is the Pinder news. If that's confirmed that he's out, I wouldn't be going with the Pinder part of it. If he's in, I like the look of that trade.
Yep. Yeah, beautiful. I like it. And Jackson asking if Patrick Miller will play. We mentioned it a few times. We don't know. Just keep an eye out on news. Jump in the Discord. We haven't mentioned it yet. But let's hope he plays. But yeah, jump in the Discord if you haven't yet, Jackson. The link's in the description below. And we'll keep you up to date in there. And look, there's some great people to follow on socials as well.
And look, the other thing, guys, with the Discord chat, really need you guys to get in there tonight, tomorrow, early with our community team. What are our trades for the community team this week? It's been doing pretty well. Outside of that Zylan Cheatham trade in last week, it's been a pretty solid squad. So put your thoughts, your trades in there so the guys can make them before lockout tomorrow night. Yeah,
the community team's come in 583rd this year, 367 last week. And I think at the moment it looks like from a consensus point of view, we've got Warden Bird and Bannon coming in, Huckporty and Cheatham coming out. Makes sense? Not too bad.
Cheatham's got to go. I think that's the given.
Yep.
Delator, all right. Do we hold Miller in that team?
We do have Miller in that team, so that might require a boost. We'll see how we go. We've never had the last minute boost with the community team. That could be an absolute kerfuffle, but We'll see how we go.
Cool.
We'll see how we go. Mate, our trades. What are you thinking this week with your team?
Yeah, look, I'm Huckporty out. That's my first trade. Huckporty out. He's run his course. I've made as much cash as we'll make. Big Sauce in. Really liking what I'm seeing out of Big Sauce. And we'll hold him as a 2-week rental over this week and then the single round of round 7. The second trade I'm a little bit iffy on. So I was potentially going to bring in, I'll probably put out Travers and bring in either a Wardenberg or a Finn Delaney. What I'm starting to look at now is potentially bringing in Bannon. I've got Saar sitting there. There's a little bit to play out now with that second trade, whether on the Pinder news, some things like that, the Miller news. So I'm bringing Sauce in, and the second one will be in one of my forward positions. So, yeah, still working on it.
And I guess the question becomes, when do we stop chasing cash? It's only round 6, so it's still relatively early on. You want to try and build your bank up as much as you can so that by the end of the season, round 15 or something, you've got 7, 8 potential starters.
Look, I think the goal is to get to a point where you have a playable bench. We've held guys like Henschel, like Kyron Galloway, and even guys like Jalen Galloway, who some have made cash, some have just embarrassed us. But coming mid-season, we've got an opportunity now with Bannon and with Armstrong to bring in those guys at that 69K or Bannon's going up now, but he'll still make cash. This is like a reset point to get your second tier of cash cows, because come the end of the season, there's not going to be too many left.
Yeah. It's at the start of the season where all these guys make their debuts and they come in at 69K, and that dries up pretty quickly by the back end of the season, doesn't it? Yeah,
for sure. So I think the rest of your cash cows are going to be made on maybe like your Finn Delaney's, if he's going to see a lot of increased burn with Cheatham out. But like you said, it's important to have that cash in place so that come the end of the season where you're running out of boosts, your trades are at a premium, maybe you're just going to make a substitution. You've got a playable guy on your bench when he comes to a double.
Yeah. Yeah, and, it's relevant that 50% of your scoring comes from the bench too, doesn't it? So, it's not irrelevant, like in a lot of other Supercoach games, NRL, AFL, BBL later in the year. So, you've got to consider your bench.
Of the score. But you would have seen in your head-to-head rounds, just within the Insight group, that it's coming down to the bench. There's been a lot of similar teams, and maybe it's a bench play that gets you across the line. So, don't discount what they can add.
Yeah, good shout. Probably not worth much, but I'm trading out Travers, Saar, and Huck Porty, and obviously that Saar trade out will be determined by whether Pinder's out or not. If that stays the same, then great. Even if Miller's out, I might consider just holding Miller. We'll see how we go. But I'm bringing in Sauce, Wardenberg, and Bannon at the moment. I might Wardenberg and Finn Delaney are the two that I'm tossing up on. Do I need that cash for next week?
Is that boosts 2 rounds in a row, Braino?
Yep, 2 in a row. That's how we do it. I didn't touch my boost for the first 4 rounds, and I wanted round 5 as a big target for me to boost. It just made sense. So, but I might go double and just attack the schedule and see how we go. I've got a bit of ground to make up.
I don't hate it. I probably would have been doing the same thing if I didn't have to burn that trade early on Armstrong. And I need to go rewatch that pod where I said he was dead to me to sort of really bring some clarity when I think about bringing him back again. I'm still hurt.
It should be a ringtone or something. Whenever Mattrix messages you, it should remind you that you've made bad decisions and don't redo them.
Yeah, but the ringtone currently says it's not what you spend, it's what you save. So I'll have to adjust it.
Yep, good. No, keep that. Yeah, it's important information. We've talked captains. What are your thoughts on captain? I'm captaining Sauce. Similar?
I've thought nothing but Sauce up until this point, but talking through this, and this happens sometimes in the pod, you see some of the comments, you answer them, and then you think, maybe that is a good point I just made. But look, Sauce for me, but I wouldn't be upset with Parker Jackson Cartwright, a Cotton, even Jalen Adams coming into the mix. Miller, if he was healthy, it really is probably the first round where I've looked at it and said, there's more than 2 legitimate captain options. And
Jalen Adams could be the pod captain this week that takes you from 1,000th up to 250th, realistically. If a couple of these really popular guys like Cotton shits the bed, if Parker Jackson Cartwright has a quiet game, God knows what happens, Creek maybe, there's 45% of captains right there in those 3 guys. Yeah, so if you can find a pod this week.
they've got the freeway game up against Illawarra. So, look, I don't think there's anyone in Illawarra that could even guard their own shadow that will be able to match up on him. So he's possibly going to go big there. The downside of playing Illawarra is if you blow them out, they don't play the starters come, the last quarter. So maybe that eats into it. And second game's against New Zealand. We spoke about before. They've got some pretty solid defenders on the guards. So, look, you can go and break down everything and overthink it like that. But end of the day, he's a solid option. He hasn't scored under 30 this year. So roll the dice. Go for it.
And then McDowell White will just go out and have a fucking banger of a week next week, and we'll all be fucked turning up next week having an answer to the flying toilet.
Yeah, look, that's not going to happen.
Good. Just a bit of bait for you to end the show. Couple of last-minute questions. I'm assuming Big D Randy is referring to me, the NRL physio. No, I know the NRL physio is a much smarter guy than me, so definitely not me. Corey Blackledge wants to know when to trade Hunter out. Well, yeah, he's been serviceable. We've been talking about the mix between him and Bolden for a while. Sydney are on a double. Everyone's on a single next round. And then their schedule is a little bit more sparse. So if you've got him, you don't need the cash. I'd hold at least through until a single. Yep, makes sense. What else have we got here? Dr. Doolittle, first time he's got a mention this week. Is he worth a shout if Pinder is out? Lost 100K because of his -1. No, I put some thought into this, and he has been dropping down to that respectable level. Now, if we cast our minds back to the start of the season, who else started at 170K? Huck Porty. Mm-hmm. Think about the production that he's put in to move himself up to, what is he now, 230K, something like that, 240? Yeah. Something like that. Is Doolittle going to be having that kind of production? Last 2 games, he's played 30-odd minutes. The potential's there. He hasn't shown us a lot, has he? Yeah, there's a lot of hair going on there, but really not much Supercoach relevance at this point. But hey, who knows? Could be. It'll only take 1 game for us to be talking about him next week. Yeah, look, I don't hate it. There is probably more upside than downside on it, and you've got the double, everyone on the single, then a double again. So you've got potentially a 5-game span to hold him, and at that price, you're possibly looking on your bench. Could you upgrade a Saar? Could you upgrade a Kyron Galloway? Anyone like that? Do you downgrade someone else to afford a big source? There's worse downgrade options than that. And I'd say that if you're going Huck Porty to big source, which is what most people are doing this week, you've got to find 150K. So you're downgrading someone. It just depends who. Yeah. Last one, mate. We'll finish up on this one. Big source or PJC for captain? PJC. Gun to your head. Source. Yeah. I just think he's just been in unreal form. And look, I'm assuming you're not holding both. If you are holding both, why are you paying up for a source at 400K if you're not going to captain him? Good advice. Guys, that brings us to the end of the show. Hopefully I've done Mattrix some justice. Hammer, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you any final words. We haven't heard that from Rob for a couple of weeks, but I'll throw it in there. Any final words? Yeah, look, negative. I got nothing. Good. Call it a wrap. Guys, thanks for hopping on. Hit subscribe, hit like, and do all those things. And we will see you, and Mattrix and Hammer will see you next week to wrap up the round. Thanks for hopping on. You've been listening to an Insight Fantasy Sports podcast. We'll catch you later.